Welcome back into another one. Set up a little bit differently now. Waiting for Jim to come and join me for his Q&A. But before that, I've got a really interesting question. Another one about crashes on the TT course, and this one a bit of a statos one. What's the most crashed corner, single corner, on the Isle of Man TT course? Let's find out. During TT this year, I ended up spending quite a bit of time up at Brandywell. I was stationed during races at the gooseneck to start with, pretty much every day. And as things happen during the day, even just weather and course checks and some small incidents and things, we end up getting moved around, and it's quite often you'll not finish up where you started. And so I ended up on Brandywell quite a bit, and then the grandstand a few times and things. At Brandywell, we get chatting to all the marshals up there, and a brilliant group up there, and I think they hold a bit of a special thing for me because Brandywell, as I've talked about in other videos, is where I spent my very first TM session ever up at Brandywell, and it's where I had my first incident on the first night, and so yeah, it'll always be quite a poignant thing for me, Brandywell, with the marshals and that corner in particular. Anyway, going off again. I'm talking to Daryl up there, Daryl Hill. He's the DSM, and to be honest, he's probably forgotten more things than most people will ever know about the TT course, the history of it. Really interesting guy, get on really well with him, and we have a good time up there, and yeah, I like spending time up there with those guys and Daryl. We got talking about the video that I made about the most common sectors for crashes. And Daryl's normally got a decent question for me every time we go up, something TT related. Sometimes about flags, really interesting one about flags this year we might actually bring up. But he asked me, he goes, do you know what the single most crashed corner is on the TT course? And I thought about it, I threw a few answers at him, and they were all wrong. And then he presented me with this book, and I forget what they call it, I think they literally just call it like the Green Book. And it's a documented list of marshalling and medical procedures and things for people at the TT and Grand Prix. But in the back of it, there's an accumulation of all the corners. Basically, when I say all the corners, it doesn't necessarily have every corner, but it's got every marshalling point and the corners within those marshalling points. How many incidents have there been at these corners? Which year they happened? Was it TT? Was it Grand Prix? Was AirMed called? Was the TM involved? So there's loads of information about these incidents. And by far, the most crashed corner on the TT course, and it outweighs any other by a country mile, surprised me a little bit. It shouldn't do, because we had 4 there on the first day of TT this year. And so giving it away a little bit there. But it's Governor's Dip. So Governor's Dip, Governor's Bridge are a combined tally for this. So basically everything from where the nook sort of finishes, on the brakes, for Governor's Bridge itself, into the dip, and actually the exit too. So technically there's almost 3 corners in that, although they're very, very slow, so it's all combined into one for this statistic. And I've been off in Governor's Dip myself in the bottom, and there's loads of people who have. And the reasons for it, I suppose we started talking about the different reasons why it might happen, but if you think about it, you've been going so fast for so long is one factor, definitely. It's the fact that you've been going so quick for so long, and all of a sudden you're you're then presented with the slowest corner on the track after Ramsey Hairpin, and that's Governor's Bridge. That's the actual right-hander in the bottom. And people say, oh, well, do people come in too fast and just run out of space? And that doesn't tend to happen. They can come in too fast, and again, it's a downhill braking section, so you're hard on the brakes, and then you tip in, and the road drops away. So easy just to come in, squeeze a little bit too much brake. As you turn that front wheel, it unloads the tyre as the road drops away, and it's so easy to tuck the front. And obviously, most of the time, there's no injuries from these things. They're just, it's like falling over at walking pace almost. So it's a really tricky little corner to negotiate. And we were doing a newcomers run out with the newcomers this year at the Manx Grand Prix. Talked about 2 videos ago. And Carolyn Sells brought up a really interesting point. We're doing laps in the car with the newcomers. And we're talking about different sections. And as we approached Governor's Dip on our 2nd or 3rd lap, somebody said that they'd just been out with Carolyn in her car, and she mentioned about steering dampers, and this is and lock stops, I should probably say. And so what tends to happen is you might set up your bike to have a really small amount of movement in the steering for the lock stop. And if you don't have enough, at those slow paces, you need a little bit more lock on your steering to get around. And if you haven't got it, you literally can't turn the bike, and you just end up falling off the side of it. And it's not through lack of skill, or you haven't prepared for the corner properly, or you haven't anticipated the corner properly. You just go in and you just naturally put a certain amount of steering lock into a bike at slow speed. You actually turn the bike. It's not there, you can't turn, and you literally just fall off the side of it. And it's very easy for someone to set the bike up and it won't go around. And as a newcomer, you find out pretty quickly that that's the case. So Carolyn brought that up, and that's a really important point to make to the newcomers, because the last thing you want to do is come off there and do something silly. Because although I say you can get away without injury, it's also very easy to fall over, put your arm out and break your wrist, and that's your year done. So yeah, if you can try and avoid those little ones, that's definitely part of it. Another thing is obviously it's the end of the lap, so you're tired, especially towards the end of a race. You're right at the end of that long race, and so you don't get complacent, be like, oh, I'm there now, but it's so easy to mess up that last bit. You can imagine doing it on the last lap, you put all that effort in, all that time, and you go and crash on the last lap. So that has a factor in it being tired. You've also got to remember that you're about to enter a piece of track that doesn't have normal road traffic on it, and people forget that it doesn't tend to have the grip that you get in other parts. And some years it's not so bad, like TT last year, it wouldn't have been so bad. But it's under the trees constantly, it rarely sees any sunlight, so you have all the sap from the trees that get on the road under there. If it gets damp, it remains damp because the sun never gets there to dry it out. There's no road traffic going through it to dry it out. And so it's just, you have to always ride through it with caution. Sometimes I see video footage of the leading TT guys, and like, listen, I'm not telling those boys how to ride a bike, but you see them like come into it with like decent lean angle on, and get on the power quick. And I know they're trying to gain every 10th they can, but it's so easy to get it wrong. And Sam West got it wrong this year at TT, and a few others down in there. And on the exit as well. So on the exit, it's like the perfect storm of like trying to high side you. You're on a slippy surface. It's got less adhesion than the rest of the road anyway, the rest of the lap. So it's slippy. You get on the side of the tyre, and then as you come out, you crest onto the flatter part of the road, and so you have a bit of load on the tyre, and all of a sudden, as you come over the top, it unloads it, and so it's so easy to lose the rear coming out as well as it is lose the front going in. It's a really technical little bit of track, and people think it's nothing of it because it's not quick, and the TT course is all about going really, really fast. But yeah, as we can see, it catches lots of people out. Fortunately, they don't tend to be bad in terms of injury. And that's one of the reasons why it shocked me a little bit, because I'm thinking of all the places that we get called to. Well, I've never ever been called to an incident at Governor's Dip, and ever since I've been at TM, I can't ever remember anyone being called to an incident there, although there's been more incidents there than anywhere else on the TT course since I've been doing it. We've never been called to them because they're just, there's always a good group of marshals down there, maybe 10, covering that whole section, and if someone slips off at 12 miles an hour, they're going to get up and walk away. So that's why it caught me out as a question, because we don't attend them. There's nothing for us to attend to, so there's no point dragging us all the way off the mountain for that. So yeah, that's an interesting one. Wonder how many of you genuinely got it, like knew what it would be before I give you the answer. I don't know, I could have sat there for ages, I think. Because all I'm thinking is, where do we go to most incidents? And we never go there. And people talk about it, and some people ask me, why have they still got that bit of road in there? And for me, I think it's important to have it. It's a little piece of TT history. If you come further back up the road to the top where the nook is, it used to be a really congested piece of road that. It's like the main artery out of Douglas to get up onto the mountain. And it's narrowed, the old piece. And so they basically put in, if you like, a bypass around the outside. They've widened it. So all that road that you go to now, if you're riding down from Signpost, round Bedstead, head down towards the Nook, and you have that long sweeping right before you get to the roundabout at the bottom, that's all new road. Maybe, it might be 20 years ago now, but it still feels new. And if you used to come in where the bikes go, so when you see it now, you'll see the barrier there not letting you go. Two-way traffic through there, rush hour, buses, trucks, it was too tight, and walls, you couldn't really do anything with it, so they put the new piece in. And I'm glad they've kept the old piece, and I'm glad they've kept the dip right round. It just makes a completely different little bit of road compared to everywhere else, and yeah, it's not exciting and no one goes down there to watch, but it's important to keep that in. If you took out that loop, they'd be, 6 or 7 seconds instantly taken off. So yeah, let's keep that in. But yeah, that was an interesting one. Hope you found it interesting anyway. But yeah, Jim's coming in. I don't think it's next week, maybe the week after, but we're only 2 weeks and 4 days away from the start of Grand Prix. So we'll get Jim in as soon as he's back. We're going to have him in for a Q&A, so that should be really interesting. Looking forward to that, and hopefully you guys do as well. A bit of an update on the bikes and things. So they're going to go back down to AGR, who do all the work for us on behalf of Honda. Basically going in for sort of like the sort of biannual service, check what they need. Some of them do need a change of oil and things like that, depending on the mileage they've done, because some of the boys have done the Southern and the pre-TT, so they've really racked up the miles compared to like myself, who's only done the TT. But yeah, they get once over down there and then back. Nothing extra to put on them for Grand Prix. We run them exactly the same screen, same tyres. And yeah, just hope this nice weather continues and we get a good start and a good Grand Prix, because I think we deserve a good one after TT and after last year's Grand Prix as well. Centenary Grand Prix was a bit of a washout, so see if we make up for it this year. But yeah, not long now. Grand Prix's coming, Jim's coming, everything to look forward to. Thanks again. See you in the next one.